Wait, we
All
still
right,
have
Sharon.
10. Sorry, we still have 10 members here. We need 13.
All right, so no quorum yet. You'll let us know when we're able to get there.
Yes, sir, I will.
All right, thank you. So I think we can go ahead and get started with everything but the approval of the minutes here. So welcome everybody to October's Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. My name is Jonathan Forbes, I'm the chair. So I'm calling this our virtual meeting here to order. Going through the agenda, first item up is any public comment. And if Wade, can you let me know if there's anybody in the waiting?
I do not see anybody here for public comments yet. Sharon, do you have any chats or questions that say so?
No, I don't see any.
Okay. All right, thank you. So we'll move on here to any members' interest of any of activities that are coming up here that anyone wants to share. All right.
Hey,
Hearing
sorry,
none.
Jonathan, it's Jamie.
Hey, Jamie, how are you?
Just one member item interest from me is I think they're officially calling it the Palma Sia Business District. There was a meeting last week that sort of reinvigorated the district surrounding the Bay to Bay area from McDill to, I think, Himes is what they're focusing on, and then a little bit north on McDill from Bay to Bay to, I'd have to look up the street, but the community input session started last week, and I think they're going to continue to put out more information and ask for community involvement in that process. So if anyone is interested, there is a website. Wade sent out an email last week with the initial one. If you go to that link, I think they'll continue to update it there. So just wanted to bring that up for anybody who wants to provide input on that project.
All righty. Thank you very much, Jamie.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Forbes, this is Sharon. We have a quorum. Okay,
then. Wonderful. We're just our next item up for the approval of the minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to read the minutes that were attached to this month's agenda item?
Yes. I move we approve the minutes as written.
Okay. We have a motion to move. Is there any objections to the approval of the minutes? All right. Hearing none, I say the minutes are approved as written. All righty. I don't have a gavel here, Wade.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
I will go ahead and just stop showing my screen for one moment while I get something open. We do have some folks with us from a group called All Love Ride Out that I think Ms. Lazarus is going to introduce, but I'll go ahead and get this video ready. And Dana, did you want to introduce before this video, or?
Dana may be muted.
And you don't appear to be muted. It's just very quiet, Dana. Well, in the meantime, still can barely hear you. I'm sorry, Dana. In the meantime, maybe I can go ahead and show that video.
Can you hear me?
Just barely. All right.
Darn.
That was much better, actually.
Hello, hello. All right, we'll do it this way. So I was going to go ahead and introduce our speakers, and then
Wade can play the video, and then I'm gonna ask the speakers some questions, and then y'all can ask the speakers some questions. Does that sound good? So yeah, hi everyone, Dana Lazarus, MPO, Plan Hillsborough staff. I have with me Ron Henry Sr. and Sean Bell Sr. They are the founders of All Love Ride Out. It is a bicycle movement that they're going to tell you a little more about. I'm not going to tell you about it. They're going to do it. And but it was started because Ron had a tear in his aorta earlier this year, and luckily he had a full recovery. And then he's an avid bike rider, so he was out riding his bike with his wife, Tamiko, and they were doing a Facebook Live, and his friends were messaging him, when's the next ride, you know, showing a lot of love and support that for his full recovery and wanting to do a bike ride with him. And that's sort of how they came up with a date on the fly, and they had their first bike ride, and over 100 people came out, and it was very successful. Now they do it once a month. So Wade, if you'd like to show the video to kind of give everyone an idea of what it looks like. And also, yeah, there should be sound.
I apologize. I can hear the sound. I'm not sure if you can.
It's a Michael Jackson song that the guy next to me was playing. But as you can see, the kids do tricks. Did you want to play the other one, Wade?
Yes, just one second.
Great.
Go wrong, yeah.
Which
We have a
one?
little.
I'm gonna ride the bike park on which one? I'm the one recording. It's off of my GoPro. So he basically in front of me.
So that's actually Ron on the bike right ahead, and Sean is filming on his GoPro for this video.
We all. That's that dude from Clearwater.
That's my friend Candace with the pink shirt on the left. She's the one I found out about All Love Ride Out through because she was doing Facebook Live one day, and I was like, ooh, what's that? So here we are going through that intersection. I think this is Columbus and
That's 15.
15.
That's me stopping traffic.
Yeah. Yeah, right now Sean is actually stopping traffic to take this video too, which I'm sure y'all are familiar with.
Sure.
Traffic blocking
Yeah, that
traffic.
is Nebraska.
Okay, so that was Columbus in Nebraska.
That's Lake in Nebraska.
Lake in Nebraska. Lake in Nebraska. All right.
Now I gotta
Great.
catch up.
And now Sean is like, I have to catch up now. All right. Wait, if you want to cut the video.
Sure, just one second.
Okay. Great. Thanks, everyone. So this is Sean, and there's Ron. I'm gonna pass the microphone to you. So tell me, what is All Love Ride Out?
All Love is basically a movement.
Up to your mouth.
A movement.
There's a little hole.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It's basically a movement. We started after I had my operation to bring out people that wanted to ride. We welcome all bikes, all women, children, everybody to come out and ride with us. It's safe. We do it once a month. We didn't want to wear people out trying to do it every week. So we just do it once a month, and it's basically for the community, the love for the community, and try to get some awareness, get health bring health to the awareness also.
Yeah. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, you know, and basically through the page, we try to, you know, get them to get out and ride on their own versus coming to a ride. Because we had a lot of people who came out to the ride and never rode a bicycle, and it was like they caught it because they weren't used to, you know, riding in groups and things like that. So we basically try to encourage them through the page that we have on Facebook. You know, we have a thing what we call a 7-day challenge, where we try to get people to ride their bicycle. I don't care if it's an hour, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just to get them out to ride their bicycle. We encourage them. And, you know, we give them a little something, you know, because when they post on the page, they post a video. And, you know, a lot of people give them the likes and, you know, encourage them. And that's basically what we're doing, just trying to, you know, get them out to do something, especially going through the pandemic. Everybody locked up in the house, and it's like really net to do that we can consider this safe and you don't have to worry about it. And like I say, when we had the bike rides, it's like each one we have, more people come out. And it's, you know, we don't leave nobody behind. And we don't have a vehicle following behind us in case somebody do break down. We pick them up, take them back to the start spot. We can fix their vehicle, we fix it on the spot. And then, you know, we just keep it moving. But it's mainly just to get people in the community out. And it's all love. We ain't no arguing. We provide water, fruit, and, you know, and it just show that, you know, we there for each other. Because a lot of people say they feel safe riding in a group versus 2 or 3 girls riding by themselves on the side of the road. When we get out in groups like that, a lot of people say they feel safer riding like that. So a lot of people look forward to it.
Wade, real quick, how much time do we have?
We have a
Just
few
keep
minutes.
going. All right, cool. So my next question is, what makes All Love Ride Out special? Actually, I'm gonna ask a different question. What is your vision for the future for All Love Ride Out? Because I think you just covered what makes y'all special pretty well.
The future, we want to like see everybody come out, you know, more than just the 300 we have. We want to be able to give back to the communities, and bicycles, you know, like have for that, you know, when I was younger, that's all we wanted for Christmas was a bike and to ride bicycles. So it's like a lot of kids now don't have
a video game.
They want a video game. We trying to break that. I know it's probably be hard to do that, but you know, with the SE bikes now, a lot of kids when they see us, they run to the edge of the road and be like, bike life, and they bike life or do a wheelie. Or, I can't do a wheelie, but you know, I mean, it's just to see them come out and be like, I want a bike. You know, I know when I was young, I always wanted a bike, and you know, I'm from the county, so to ride over into the city and see that is special.
That's really good. Did you want to add about the future or?
Yeah, Ron handled that.
All right.
Nothing to say.
Okay. And my last question is, how can people get involved in All Love Ride Out, and what are some of your needs as an organization?
Well, basically, I don't know how many times we have to preach this, but lights, because the time is changing, and a lot of them, I don't get it. They'll come out there without lights. Then when the time change on this, it's like now you got lights, you get in the middle, you got lights, you get in the bike, you got lights, you get in the front. And it's like we're trying to protect everybody else, because a lot of people, they don't take how serious it is about them lights. Because like I don't see bike rides where everybody got lights. It's lit up, we look like an RV. But when you got people not here, and then you have riders out there that's not respecting it, who driving cars and not respecting the bicycle. So if you don't have lights, it's just rough. And me personally, my bicycle is lit up like a Christmas tree. But I'm scared for the people who not lit up like a Christmas tree. I done been hit by a car as a child 2 or 3 times and survived. So it's like, I know how serious that is. I done been driving and almost hit somebody. That's why I try to basically encourage people to ride with the flow of traffic. And you know, because a lot of people don't. They're like, I want to see the car coming, yeah. But when you come into intersections and people turn, a lot of people used to look the way they need to look. I'm not expecting no car coming from this way, so I'm not looking over there, and that's where you at. So we try to encourage people to ride with the flow of traffic. And a lot of them, that's a bad habit they have, but in the group, we do that. We stop at red lights, and if the red light turn green, then we got somebody y'all hold up, let's let everybody get through. But like I said, it's just the time changing on us. So lights is important. And a lot of people don't get it. I get it because I done been hit. But like I said, if people haven't been there and experienced that, it just feel like we just talking. And like I said, a lot of people, only time they ride their bicycle is when we do a ride out. Okay, yeah.
Do you want to say? And Ron also mentioned water. They also have a need for water donations. And so if you want to learn more about All Love Ride Out, you can go to the Facebook page. That's primarily where they're organizing. It's just All Love Ride Out 2020 on Facebook. There's a page and a group. I think there's a little more discussion in the group, but the page will let you know when the rides are happening. They have these beautiful flyers. The next one, they're raffling off a pink bike for Breast Cancer Month, breast cancer awareness. So they're doing some really good stuff for the community, and they're honoring survivors of breast cancer during the ride as well.
And they made a donation to Sisters Network Incorporated of Tampa.
They're making a donation to the Sisters Network Incorporation of Tampa. And if you guys want to make some donations or have any questions about All Love, you can reach out to me and I can get you in touch with Sean and Ron. My email is lazarusd@plancom.org. But yeah, and then is there any questions? Do we have any questions for these folks?
I don't know if you've thought about this, but Planet Bike is a major manufacturer of bicycle accessories, most, lights and speedometers and everything like that. They have a pretty well organized program of getting lights to people. If you'd like for me to, I know the people there. I'll reach out and see if I can get you guys a link.
That would be great, Jim. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll get in touch with you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
I do have a quick comment here, and I appreciate the group getting together. I appreciate everyone getting out and writing in a group. I just would express just some concerns from what I saw in the video with riding on the opposite side of the street, and also when we approach intersections with a red light there. We want to do this in the safest way possible. As always, and I, again, can't emphasize enough how much I appreciate the initiative and I appreciate the effort. I just, as a parent mainly, is I just want to make sure everyone's doing it safely. And I can totally understand the lights situation. I appreciate that you gave us the where we can contact you from, because there's a lot of folks that do listen to this this recording who may be in a position that can assist from providing some lights.
That would be great. Yeah, and they definitely take safety into consideration at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dana, just one thing to mention. If you could post any relevant information in the chat, everyone will have access to it.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you.
All right, but other than that, Ron and Sean, thanks for spending some time with us today. And best wishes to you guys.
Stay safe.
Thank you. All right, bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye, Dana.
Thank you, Don. All right, Wade, are we just going in order on the agenda?
Yes, sir, if that's all right with you.
All right. So the next thing, I think you're leading this discussion, is we want to review last year's legislative positions and suggest some new ones.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And this, we don't have any necessarily new ones to suggest. It's been a strange year. I'm not sure that there is a whole lot of new stuff, but there may be as the legislature session kicks off. But the letter that we have up is one of the things that we did support last year. So these were the big ones. The I-275 State Road 60, otherwise known as the West Shore Interchange, they supported that. Not to eliminate seats on the MPO board, which there were some things, or some things floating around about how surtax proceeds could be used under state law. There was also just urging the legislature to take all possible steps to reduce Florida's high traffic death rate. So allowing officers to enforce existing laws about cell phone use, increasing the penalties for injuring pedestrians or for drag racing. So allowing local governments not to do any statewide preemption of motor scooter regulation. And determining school hazardous walking conditions and urging the state to continue to share the cost burden of required school bus service. The other one that we did separately, which you all will recognize, is was against the proposed bill that would eliminate RRFBs or require them all to be retrofitted to red and maybe additional retrofits. So that is still something that I would hope the committee would still be in favor of, is supporting those measures as lower cost safety infrastructure measures. So with that, if there's discussion or if folks have other things that they want to mention, I also know that Beth Alden is here to answer any other questions you all might have.
I have a question, Wade. What's the status of the move over, not as opposed to the 3-foot clearance rule or law, but the Florida Bicycle Association had in the past been pushing for a move over law similar to required for emergency vehicles that requires motorists to move a full lane out where possible, and where not possible, slow down to 20 miles an hour below the speed limit. I know that Becky Afonso has been working on that for a long time. Do we have an opportunity to weigh in on that?
Hey, Jim, this is Beth Alden. Our board has not weighed in on that in the past, but if it is this committee's wish, we can bring that forward as something to potentially add this year.
I'd like to bring that to everybody's attention, perhaps get some discussion going on that, what other people think of the move over legislation as opposed to the 3-foot distancing.
Is there any discussion here?
Stephen with the city of Tampa. I've been communicating with Becky on that, not recently, but within the last 6 months. And I believe she is developing some language that combines that as well as some recommended adjustments and clarification that needs to be incorporated in state law in terms of just general definitions and terminology. I'm sure we've all seen places in the statute where the bicycle and pedestrian laws are a little bit unclear, especially now that they've incorporated micromobility into the law. So I know she is actively working towards it, but I would almost suggest that maybe we ask Becky to come back and brief us and give us an update and see how we can help.
Thank you, Stephen.
Because I guess Jim and Stephen, so in regards to the move over, is that kind of speaking to perhaps the third bullet on this February 5, 2019 letter to Senator Roussan? Kind of enhance that a little bit more? Is that where the discussion may be going?
That would be a reasonable place to group that. We also need to revisit what we're saying about, regulation of motorized scooters, because I think that's been, there've been some changes in that since this letter was written.
Did anybody else see the article about use of accelerometers on scooters to detect when they're running on a sidewalk and stop them? Internally to the scooters, artificial intelligence.
I did not.
Evidently, some bright person has used a very inexpensive accelerometer to detect sidewalk cracks, so that a rider on a sidewalk is depowered, as it were.
Well, thank you. My understanding is that they are still legal, I believe, in Florida on sidewalks. But if they were to not be legal on sidewalks, that would be a good way to use the intelligence of that machine to shut it down. Incidentally, with regard to the move over law, I was reading the other week that the UK has updated their guidance. Instead of 3 feet, they say 2 meters, which is just over 6 feet. So that distance, I think, does make a lot, particularly when you don't have a shoulder or anything else, or a multi-lane facility. So thank you, Jim, for bringing that up. Mr. Chair, if there's nobody else, please go ahead.
All righty. So you got what you guys need? If Wade and Beth, you have what you need then?
Yes, thank you. And yeah, we will check with Becky Afonso and bring that back. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. All right, moving on here. The next part is presentation by Stephen and Carla here on the BPAC Tampa activities update. That's also attached to your agenda.
Stephen, shall I make you a presenter?
Yes, please. Can y'all see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sure
Yes,
can.
we can.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, great. My name is Stephen Benson, and I'm with the City of Tampa Mobility Department, and I'm also joined by
Carla Price with Parks and Recreation Department.
And we are so excited to be able to bring to you an update on all of the various walk, bike programs and activities that the city has been working on. Real briefly, we are going to try to touch on all these topics during our presentation. The first is the Mayor Jane Castor's Transforming Tampa's Tomorrow plan, which addresses trails and greenways and many other transportation programs. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the ongoing planning activities that we have that we'd like for y'all to get engaged in and participate in, about our Vision Zero program, speed management, our projects that have to do with placemaking and tactical urbanism, go over some of our transportation and our corridor projects that involve major improvements to the pedestrian and bicycle experience. Carla's going to talk a little bit about our trails and greenways focus. And then I'll talk briefly at the end about some of the innovative tools that we're using and pilot projects and programs that relate to smart mobility, micromobility, and new technologies. So the first is many of you may have heard or been a part of the Transforming Tampa's Tomorrow advisory teams that were formed at the beginning of Mayor Castor's term. There were 5 teams, and one of the teams dealt specifically with transportation. And that team generated 5 recommendation areas with action items. Here shown on your screen: transit, trails and greenways, Vision Zero, smart mobility, and then community engagement are the 5 focus areas that the city has committed to enhance and to improve going forward. So as far as that, how that has affected our ongoing planning activities, the Tampa Moves moniker is really the name of our mobility plan. And that mobility plan is going to be going through a major update here in the next couple of years. The purpose of that is to help chart out a path for the next 30 years of transportation investments in our system. And the five pillars that we've developed that are based upon bringing together the principles in the MPO's long-range transportation plan, as well as our comprehensive plan, are mobility for all, economic opportunity, sustainability and resiliency, equity, and safety. And as I said, that's going to be kicking off here in the next several months or so. So we'll make sure that you all are engaged in that process.
And if you haven't heard, the City of Tampa Parks and Recreation Department is undergoing a master plan for our department. We're basically going to be looking at everything we do, which includes special events, recreation programming, and all of our parks facilities. We're going to be looking at those and making recommendations on how we could do better with all of those things. Last fall, we had 8 public meetings that we held throughout the city, and we took written comments and we videotaped comments from the public. That information that we gathered is being given to our consultant, which is AECOM. And this month, we are actually kicking off the full master plan process with them. This spring, we'll be holding more public meetings as well as stakeholder meetings with the completion of the master plan in 2022. And one of those elements within the master plan is going to be connectivity and looking at how people get to our facilities and how we can improve upon that pedestrian and bicyclist and alternative modes of transportation opportunities for people within the city.
Transitioning to some of the more specific recommendations that came out of that T3 initiative, Vision Zero, our advisory team took a deep dive into Vision Zero and actually made very specific recommendations for how the city should move forward. The first was very publicly and formally adopting Vision Zero as a priority, and the mayor did that just over a year ago. Joining the Vision Zero network and developing an action plan, which we are just kicking off here this month. Updating our land development code to reflect Vision Zero principles, creating a Vision Zero role within city government, which we're currently in the process of hiring and interviewing candidates for that role right now. Focusing on very specific engineering solutions, making sure that we're filling gaps in our system, adding more safe pedestrian crossings, and expanding the use of complete streets projects throughout the city. Focusing on making sure that we're making investments where investments are needed. So the highest priority corridors should be focused on first, including state roads and county roads. And then the last item that has been very popular, especially during COVID, is make it easier to activate city streets as dynamic public spaces. This is the list that we have committed to focusing on for Vision Zero within the city. This list was directly derived from the MPO's high injury network. You'll see that, and these are the corridors with the most number of and the most severe crashes. You'll see that the color coordination on the map and on the chart actually denotes the jurisdiction of who, which entity is responsible for which facility. And this is really going to be affecting our strategic priorities going forward and really bringing us to the table more often with the county and with the state to affect change on these major corridors that we know carry such a big our transportation needs. Another very, very big important element of pedestrian and bicycle safety that we are committing to is a goal of maximum 35 miles per hour on all of the streets in the city that are not limited access. So with the exception of Interstate 275, Veterans Expressway, the Selman, our goal is for every single road to be 35 miles or less. There are not that many of them left because we've been chipping away at them over the years, but that is something that we're going to be working towards with the state and with the county through incremental changes over time and also with major projects that will reinforce lower speeds. Here are some of the images of our placemaking programs that went out as part of Lift Up Local during the pandemic and the closure. We temporarily suspended the need to go through the process of acquiring a permit from the city and allowed businesses to go ahead and kind of fast track and commit to following all of the local ordinances for setup and takedown and safety and utilize parking spaces and sidewalk spaces that weren't typically available. We even closed several of the streets in the higher activity areas to provide that extra space and allow for social distancing and for use of the public space. For those of you that have been downtown lately, you probably have seen that last week we wrapped up some of the final touches on the painted bulb out project along Ashley Drive. This went all the way from Jackson to Tyler. And unlike a lot of our other art in the right-of-way projects, the premise behind this project was introducing color and texture in the areas where vehicles are not supposed to go. So these areas are going to be bounded off by temporary or the flexible post delineators to help reinforce the narrowing of the actual roadway space and encourage people to drive more slowly and more cautiously. So this is just a snippet of it, and that's the artist. She's a local downtown artist who came up with the schematic for this. And of course, our Crosswalks to Classrooms program, 5 locations were implemented and 4 more are planned for this year. A total of 13 painted intersections have been completed, and then the painted curb extensions on Ashley, as well as some other innovative art in the right-of-way projects that we're working on here in the next couple of years. Another strategy that we've expanded the use of is the use of all-way stop control. We have been very reluctant to do this in the past, but that is something that has now changed. We know that converting 2-way stop control intersections to 4-way stop control intersections can reduce crashes by nearly 70%. And so this is going to become a very important Vision Zero tool for us. We already have a 6-month backlog of requests for field review and for study to make sure that we're still meeting METCD requirements. But this is something that you'll see popping up more and more throughout the city. And then just a quick snapshot of where we've been. We have a lot of what the city's been doing in the past has actually been very, very good. We have pursued systematically Vision Zero projects, safety projects on the top crash corridors that the city controls. So that's why on that list that I showed you earlier, there really are not a lot of city streets left that have not been completely redesigned. And here's just one example of a corridor that used to be on our top crash list that the city does control, that went through a LAT project with that DOT to narrow the lanes and make pavement marking changes, introduce buffered bike lanes. And a lot of these projects, you'll know, an image earlier I showed you was of Hans Avenue, which was also redone as a part of our Vision Zero efforts in the past. So another example of some of the treatments that we're incorporating internal to neighborhoods are the phasing out of our speed bump program or speed table program, which has happened over the course of several years, and phasing in more innovative solutions such as raised intersections. And so this is an example of a recently installed raised intersection that was done as part of a neighborhood repaving project in the Hampton Terrace section of Seminole Heights. I think this is on Idlewild. So these are raised intersections are proven to be much more effective and much more palatable to communities as opposed to speed tables. So that's something we're going to be looking more closely at and expanding moving forward. Just another example of what that looks like. And then again, kind of just taking a temperature test of where we've been and where we're going. Over the course of 20 years, the city has led or been involved with over 20 road diet projects. And it's something that we really want to be proud of, because each one of these projects faced pushback and faced criticism and faced a lot of problems getting it installed and getting it put in. But we're confident that this is one of the reasons why so few of the city's jurisdiction streets are high crash corridors. So as going forward, our Vision Zero approach and our safety approach, especially for pedestrians and bicyclists, is going to be borrowing some of these ideas that we've used that are proven and trying to implement them on more streets and more locations. And then on the right, that just denotes the locations that have been done in the past in green, and then the ones that are currently either being constructed or even just under study in pink.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about our Greenways and Trails Master Plan, and I'm actually going to go back in history to 1995. At that time, a group of citizens, a volunteer consultant, and city staff met on a Saturday and looked at the Hillsborough River corridor and started dreaming about what trails could be and what trails could really be built that would draw attention to the Hillsborough River. Instead of turning our back on it, let's bring it to the forefront. So this was really the city's first really attempt at looking at how we could incorporate trails into our community. And from that document, which ended up being kind of controversial because people started looking at it and thinking that trails were going to be going through their backyard. Many of you are around there, and you probably remember a few newspaper articles about that. But from that document, we were able to get a grant from the National Park Service, who assisted us with preparing a master plan for the whole community, which was adopted in November of 2000 by Tampa City Council. And since that time, that document's been really the basis for everything that we do as far as greenways and trails go. Next. From that document, it identified 6 different greenway areas, and then within each of those greenway areas, we developed detailed plans. Next. And this is an example. This is the South Tampa plan. We took aerials and we noted where we thought there would be on-road connections versus off-road. The orange is off-road on this map, the pink is on-road, and you can't really tell the difference, but there's dashed lines for projects that have not been completed or proposed, and then the solid orange are for projects that have been completed. So we try and keep these updated as much as we can, but these are really what kind of guide our efforts. And when we initially started this, we really looked at greenways versus just trails. So we tried to identify parcels of property. And at one point, we had identified property that really followed the whole edge of MacDill, north edge of MacDill Air Force Base from Hillsborough Bay to Old Tampa Bay. And we had grants from the Office of Greenways and Trails, the state of Florida, to purchase a lot of those properties. But at the time, the economy was so good, the city could not pay the same price for these properties that private developers could. So unfortunately, we weren't able to obtain a lot of those green linkages that we would have liked to have had. But we were able to keep a lot of the connectivity. We still have a few little missing links there that we're working on, but we still at some point will be able to have a trail that goes from Hillsborough Bay to Picnic Island and Old Tampa Bay. Next. So since that time, we've been using that old master plan, and one of the things that Mayor Castor's advisory committee on transportation did was come up with some new recommendations on how we can do a better job of incorporating these trails into the rest of our multimodal system. And the first recommendation, and you can read it on the screen too, but was not just to have the Parks and Recreation Department managing these, but to incorporate it into the city's transportation department. And I think that that's really important because there are so many new things that transportation is doing that it's hard for us to even keep up with everything. So having it under one umbrella, I think will really help with the uniformity of the connectivity. When we started Greenways and Trails in 2000, transportation was not really on board with the whole idea of this connectivity. So it's really nice that in the last few years that the importance of off-road trails integrated with on-road has really gained an importance, and our state transportation department certainly embraces that activity of incorporating them into the overall plan. Our maps need to be updated. Again, they need to be updated with what our transportation department currently doing and what their future goals are. Making sure that we're looking at it as transportation options, not just for recreation, which I think we have done for the most part, but definitely the two can work together. And I think there's a lot more opportunities for funding and grants when you look at these as part of a multimodal plan. And again, then developing performance goals for the trails and greenways overall as we go forward. Next. Stephen, my computer just timed out. So give me a minute to reconnect here. Sorry about that.
And just to keep it moving, I think that
Yeah, go ahead.
we had we wanted to highlight some of the accomplishments, recent accomplishments, to show also kind of where we've been, where we're going. And some of these are recently completed projects that were done both internal to some of our park facilities. I think that's the Gadsden Park on the top left. Manhattan Avenue, the trail that runs alongside, is more of a side path on the bottom left. A trail project that we were able to incorporate into a vacating and do kind of a right-of-way swap and have a developer construct on the top right. And then, of course, one of our signature trail facilities, the amazing Courtney Campbell Causeway Trail that recently was enhanced with these awesome trailhead features and beautification elements. They're on the bottom right.
I'm back. Thanks, Stephen.
Okay.
And then our signature trail facilities, the Riverwalk in downtown, showing the Kennedy Plaza section and Doyle Carlton section, the Courtney Campbell Trail, as Stephen just mentioned, and Bayshore Boulevard, with a picture from 1920 versus current day. And all of these cities, all of these facilities are operated and maintained by Parks and Recreation Department, and we played a hand in the design of each of these facilities, except maybe Bayshore. But definitely we had input and helped guide the design of these facilities. One, to make sure they were something that we could really maintain when they were done. So one of the things, even though we had a Greenways and Trails master plan, we never really received capital improvement money to build anything. So we had to be pretty creative. Working with our public art committee and program within the city of Tampa, we had an artist come in and design trail improvements that we could add, and the trail markers you see shown there are made as gateway pieces to show and bring out attention to different trails. And we just received money. We actually had these for a couple of years, but have never had the money to actually install them and finish the graphics. So in the next year or so, you'll see these markers start going in at different trails, some of our major trails. McDill 48 Park is a green oasis in the peninsula of South Tampa. It's a ELAP and Florida Communities Trust site of 48 acres. And we are working with our stormwater division. They are going to be putting in about a 15-acre stormwater pond to help with the quality of water and stormwater within this peninsula area. And along with that, we're going to be incorporating a trail connection onto that site and through it. We've also been successful in working with developers and getting them to also participate within the Greenways and Trails project. This Interbay Trailhead is at the corner of Tankerway and Interbay Boulevard, and there's a developer catty corner across the street that has a proposed multifamily project, and they are interested in contributing to the piece of property next to Fire Station 19 and create a trailhead there. Now, those discussions were occurring before COVID, so haven't heard from them since then, but I suspect once their project gets going again that we will continue those conversations. One of our really big successes recently, and I'm sure most of you guys have heard of it, is the $24 million build grant that the city received. And we're going to show you a little bit more detail about that project. Stephen's got a plan that I'm going to walk
can
you
do that.
guys through.
Do you want to do it? Do you want to do it now, or do you want to wait till the end?
We can wait to the end. Like
It's in a separate window. So maybe we should wait till the end. I don't want it to go too long.
That'll be fine.
Just finishing out this section, the other thing that we're doing, we're extremely supportive of the MPO's position on RRFBs. We have installed about 40 at pedestrian crossings throughout the city to date, and we have 100 more proposed. So we really don't want to see that tool go away. Those future locations are going to be brought online and prioritized based upon proximity to schools and parks, and then other locations will be installed after that. Another thing that we're doing is taking a step back and really looking at the city as a lab. And so you'll see different initiatives and things pop up that incrementally we think are making a difference. This is just an image of a sign that our staff actually developed in response to the legislation that was put forth to eliminate RRFBs, that we hope provides a little bit more clarity and sense of caution to the pedestrians who use the flashing beacons to make sure that they're looking before they actually step out into the road. So there are incremental changes being made as a result of that legislation to hopefully address the situation that we know triggered the legislation being proposed. Other signal initiatives that we're working on are deploying more lead pedestrian intervals, so giving pedestrians a couple seconds at the beginning of the cycle. Those are pretty much universal throughout downtown, and we're slowly going out from the downtown into the West Shore District, into the university area. We're expanding our use of LED lighting and converting existing lighting systems to LED, working with TICO and also with FDOT, and then using technology to aid in incident management and also predictive crash analysis as well. Some of the pilot projects that you'll see popping up our separated bike lane program, where we're looking at buffered bike lanes and bike lanes that have some space there between the striping to install flexible posts. These are all locations where we would like to be able to install physical separation, like a curb or something to provide more protection, but for whatever reason, that specific location isn't appropriate for that solution at this time. So as a stopgap, we're looking for these temporary features that we can put that will increase perceived safety and also real safety for cyclists using the bike facilities. And we've expanded our bike lane network so much to the point that we actually put in the budget, and it was approved that we would purchase a mini street sweeper. So that is going to be, I think, coming online here before the end of the year, that purchase. And it's going to be used to help sweep and maintain the cycle tracks downtown, but also the protected bike lanes on Bayshore and some of the other ones throughout the city. So that should be really great. As far as transportation capital projects go, I'm not going to go through each one individually, but if you do have a question or you are concerned about a capital project that you heard about, we do a very good job of keeping our website up to date about all the projects that are going on. Anything from corridor, complete street projects, to intersection improvements, to resurfacing projects that are interior to a neighborhood, to trails and greenways, and our capital maintenance projects, which are really more structure projects like a bridge rehabilitations and seawall projects, and our special projects like the streetcar extension and the West River build grant. So this is the fun part where I get to show you guys graphics. Some of these you may have seen, but this is an image of the Floribraska Avenue project that's going to be going to construction very early next year, where we are reducing the number of lanes on Floribraska from 4 to 2 and installing a center turn lane and a protected cycle track. And the limits of that project are from Florida to Nebraska. Columbus Drive, a very similar project. This one is in East Tampa, so running from Nebraska to 14th. And this project is almost a complete reconstruction. You'll see that it almost looks nothing like the previous slide. Pedestrian features like bulb outs, landscaping areas, as well as all new crosswalks and crosswalks with rectangular rapid flashing beacons. And again, this project is also a 2021 construction project. And then a project that is now wrapping up that's under construction is our 34th Street Safety Improvement Project. These photos are a little blurry, but you can see before and after. This is the intersection of 34th Street and 21st Avenue over in East Tampa. This one was converted, this intersection, to a modern roundabout. There were 2 other intersections that were also converted. This is the before picture of, I think, 34th and Lake. And that's the after picture. These pictures were just taken the other day. So if you drive through there, these are open. And the third roundabout is not open yet, but it should be open here in the next couple of weeks. That one's further to the north of Hillsborough. As far as capital maintenance goes, we are still figuring out ways to incorporate pedestrian and bicycle and safety improvements into our capital maintenance projects. So this was the Brewery Street Bridge has reached the end of its functional life, and so we have to perform some major rehabilitation to it. And while we're doing that, we are going to go ahead and reduce one of the lanes. So instead of being 4 lanes, it'll only be 3 lanes. And we're using that additional space to widen out the sidewalks on each side. So if you've ever tried to walk across the Brewery Street Bridge, I take off my hat to you because it's not an easy thing to do. It's very steep and the sidewalk is very narrow. So this should really improve that connection across the river. We're also looking to incorporate some of the thematic and aesthetic features of the Riverwalk, like the pedestrian railing and the decorative light features that you can kind of see there. And then our downtown corridors. This is the South Core resurfacing project. It involves Tampa Street, Florida Avenue, south of Jackson. Those are the sections that are owned by the city, as well as almost all of Brewery Street from Jefferson all the way west to Ashley Drive. And this is just a very blurry graphic, but it is really hopefully conveying to you that we're adding green bike lanes that are buffer protected and placed on the inside of the parking lane. So we're hoping that those are going to be more accommodating and inviting to cyclists. We're also incorporating bike boxes and some of the other green safety features that you see on Jackson Street and Cass Street on these bike lanes as well. You can see this is Tampa Street coming south, and the parking spaces here, but the bike lane's going to be on the inside. That should be really cool. This is just another angle looking north. This is Fort Brooke Garage on the left. So you can see how the bike lane will be woven in on the inside of the parking. And that project is going to go to construction, I forgot to say, next year. The other major component of our capital program is working with the county. There are multiple resurfacing projects going on right now on county roads in the city. We're working with them on both of them. North Armenia and North Howard are being resurfaced, and this is the cross section that we've proposed. Again, it's the bike lanes on the inside of the parking, as well as new pedestrian crossings and RRFBs. And then for Columbus Drive, the county is resurfacing from Del Mabry to Nebraska, and we've worked with them to incorporate a road diet from roughly Howard Avenue to North Boulevard. That will allow us to incorporate bike lanes. This is actually a cross section of the bridge, the swing bridge, what it will look like, as well as additional pedestrian crossings along the corridor. And both of those, Armenia and Columbus, are going to be going to construction in the next, I think, 18 months. And then something that's been moving along quietly kind of in the background, we have 2 segments of the Green Artery that are in production. Segment E, we had a public meeting. I think it was mentioned earlier in this meeting. Design is essentially complete, and we are scheduled to start construction next year. And then for segment E, by the way, is the segment over near Laurie Park. And then segment D is the segment that basically runs along Park Circle over in the northeast section of Seminole Heights. And that section is scheduled to start design early next year. We already have a consultant on board that's going to be starting work pretty soon. And then I think this is my last slide. Just want to give kind of a high level update to make sure that everyone's aware of where the green spine is. Obviously, phase 1, the section through downtown from the river to Nebraska, has been completed. Everything west of the river is currently under construction in some form or fashion. There's a very, very large Cypress Street outfall project over there. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of it, but that project will be incorporating the remaining elements of the green spine, so it'll go all the way to Howard. And then the only remaining segments that need to be built are the segments east of Nebraska along Nucio Parkway, and all of those remaining segments have been funded by FDOT, and they're currently in the tentative work program that we expect to see here pretty soon. So 4 miles in 15 years, but we've come a long way. So we want to thank the MPO for all their support in helping us get the grants with FDOT to get this project done. And with that, happy to answer any questions or any specifics that y'all might have, but thank you for your time.
All right, Stephen and Carla, thank you. Are there any questions or input? Jim.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know, Stephen, that I was amazed at how fast the work got done on 34th Street. It seemed like almost an eye blink to get those roundabouts in there. Just really good job. So thank you.
Thanks. I hate to say that there's a silver lining to the pandemic, but that definitely made things go a little bit quicker. So we're happy to see it all complete.
All right, and I think you also saw that there was some appreciation for a mini street sweeper. So I know that will be well used. So thank you very much.
I'll have to invite you guys to the christening.
Count on it. All righty. Are there any other questions for Stephen or Carla on this
Stephen, yeah, I got one. This is Tim Horst here. What was the project limits for the resurfacing on Armenia?
Hey, Tim, that's roughly Kennedy to Columbus. And same for Howard, too.
Okay, great. Okay, and same for Howard, too?
Yep, they're on different schedules, though, but the same limits.
Okay, okay, that's good to know. Armenia can definitely use it.
Hey, Jonathan, it's Jamie. I have just one comment, if I may.
Go ahead.
So in terms of great presentation, by the way, I really enjoyed seeing everything come together. And one just general comment I have when we talk about these things or you go to present them to the communities, every time I hear the word road diet, it almost immediately gets sort of a negative association from a lot of people because they think that it's going to like cause these major traffic problems with their commutes. And so from my perspective and the things I learned with the Bay to Bay complete street effort was that as soon as road diet was said, you know, people came out in force to say how much they hated it instead of looking at the bigger picture, which was all of the other wonderful things that, you know, a road diet can do to make it more of a complete street for the community. So there's a better way to market those than using the word road diet. That would be my advice. But that's just my opinion. So.
It's a great point. Yeah, we continue to encounter a lot of pushback, in you know, depending upon the neighborhood and the situation. But we've tried going forward. We're trying to not use it as a descriptive term about a future project. It's more looking back at what we've done and realizing, oh, we were doing this before it was even called, before there was even a name for it. You know.
Yeah.
I totally agree on the tone and the kind of the subtext of the name. It does sometimes invoke a negative connotation, so we have to work on that.
Yep. Thanks.
Any other comments? Okay then. Well, thank you very much, guys. Nice presentation, as others have said, and we appreciate your time as always. So moving on here, next item here is the overview of the Clear Guides data analytics platform, and that's with Dr. Wong.
Yes, Johnny, would you like me to make you the presenter, or would you prefer for me to scroll through the slides?
Would you mind scrolling through, please? I don't have the PowerPoint.
Not at all.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. I always appreciate presenting to the BPAC committee. Johnny Wong, MPO staff, just for the record, and tonight I was asked to come here and provide you with a status update on a project that we're managing. This project's actually been in the works for about 4 years, and for 3 of those 4 years, it was really just a vision that hadn't yet come to fruition. Finally, in November of last year, we were able to launch a shared data and analytics platform, and we're hoping that this could represent a new wave of how transportation planning and operations management get done. We're hoping that this platform that we're invested in could become the centralized repository for all mobility data across the county. Next slide, please. And to provide you with a little bit of history, our MPO was one of the first to participate in a pilot study that was sponsored by the Federal Highway Administration back in 2016. And the focus of that pilot was on data business plans. So the feds were interested in knowing how agencies, specifically MPOs, are acquiring, using, and managing transportation data. The study focused mostly on aspects of data governance because that was the Fed's interest. And so they asked us questions like, how are data being collected? How are changes being documented? Who's responsible for data quality? How's access being regulated? And questions that kind of fall in line along that scope. Next slide, please. The study was actually more comprehensive than this, but this slide shows a summary of some of the topics that we covered in that data business plan. And you can read through as I'm talking, but the most interesting findings of that study were related to the second, third, and last bullet points. I'll summarize those on the next slide, please. So those bullet points focus on questions of what data do we have, what data do we not have? And to answer those questions, we used a data and gap assessment. The data assessment, of course, is to tell us what data do we have, and the gap is to identify holes in our data program. And so, that's kind of identifying what is missing, what are we not invested in, and what do we need. To answer those questions, we sent surveys to all of the transportation agencies across Hillsborough and even some outside of the county. And we asked them what data are they collecting, what data are they using. The findings for this were pretty interesting to us because within Hillsborough County alone, we found that agencies are using about 50 unique different mobility data sets. And that, of course, is a lot. If you can imagine how much data is being produced within this county, and compared to some other small counties, we're definitely operating toward the higher end of the spectrum. The second interesting finding is that even back in 2016, we were operating kind of at the cutting edge. Granted, we're not Silicon Valley or a geography like Austin, Texas, but back in 2016, we still had agencies collecting connected vehicle data. I believe at the time, HART was prepping to launch its autonomous bus pilot program along Marion Transit Center that they just kicked off last week. I believe that we were the first, maybe one of the first MPOs to participate in the Waze data exchange. And so there are a lot of agencies within the county that are doing really amazing things with data and analysis. That leads to a third issue, which is also really interesting. I know all of these are interesting to me because I was the project manager, but the landscape of data within the county is highly uneven. We suffer from a huge problem of data inequity. There's a few agencies within the county that are very well funded and have mature data programs. We're able to invest in building new tools and acquiring new data sets, whereas some that don't have those resources or don't have the staff capability, they really suffer. And it's contingent, good planning is contingent upon us being able to produce data sets and then share them with our partners for that consistency, right? We don't want to have wealth of data isolated to just a few agencies. We want to share. And that's something that I think, that's a message that I'm looking to push, and I think some of the other agencies are on board. Next slide, please. So that's just a little bit of a primer about the data business plan and its findings. The actual data portal that we invested in came to fruition last November, like already mentioned. The Hillsborough MPO and me personally is managing this program. We're doing this in strong coordination with our partners in the county and the city and District 7. This data portal has only been operational for 10 months roughly. It took us about a month to get it set up. But even in that short amount of time, we've already gotten a lot of value in it. And we're again thinking that this is going to be the next wave of planning, because it's really helping us to work smarter, not harder. And it's generating insights and analytics that are reducing the amount of effort that's required to do quality checks. And so this is really like, set it up, do the analysis, and then don't worry about producing errors, because it seems to be coming back error-free. Next slide, please. This next slide is a little long. It's a lot of sales pitch language that was provided to me, but the platform that we're invested in is actually a web-based tool. So it's a website that all the agencies have access to. We can go on and it displays a map of Hillsborough County along with weather data and real-time traffic data across the entire network. We can analyze historical data. So we use that to track trends over time. And this is very helpful, obviously, from a planning perspective, but also for operations. Next slide, please. The name of the platform is ClearGuide, and that probably doesn't mean too much to some of you who are not in the planning field or working in the planning field, but ClearGuide is an ITERIS product. They're one of the industry leaders in this space. It uses HERE data, which is provided to us for free by central office. That data can be binned in real time, or it's produced in real time, and it can be binned in very short intervals, again, for operations purposes. So folks that are in the traffic management center can see data each minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever suits their purpose. And it can be binned across months, year, or multi-year for planning. We recently kicked off some additional work to add crash data and to add Waze incidents. So this is becoming a one-stop shop for all of us, where we can see speed, delay, congestion, crashes, and incidents. And it's been really helpful, as you might imagine. Next slide, please. I chose not to do a live demo because doing it on GoToWebinar always renders it somewhat less impressive, but this is the screen that you're greeted with. This is showing a map of Hillsborough County. From this view, if you were to hover over any of those colored in segments, you'd be able to see metrics in real time and compare them to historical performance. You'd be able to see how speed is trending over a 30-day period. You could dial it into a 5-minute period if you wished. You can also see things like reliability, location of crashes is populated here, and all different types of incidents. And you can adjust the parameters so that you can look at only highly reliable reports of congestion, or only the most reliable reports of potholes, if that's something that you're interested in. Next slide, please. We've used the tool already to satisfy a lot of project needs. One of the first little use cases that we experimented with was studying route performance. Most of the time when we're doing a planning study, we focus on corridors. So we would look at, a 2 or 3 mile segment of Kennedy Boulevard, or a 2 or 3 mile segment of Hillsborough. And that's traditional, but we wanted to see what it would look like assessing your commute from door to door, from home to work. Next slide, please. This is obviously just exploratory. This is not satisfying any planning need, but we wanted to investigate what this tool is capable of. And really, we use this exploratory case to get adjusted to using the data platform. We identified 15 key economic spaces, which come from our travel demand model. we put together a matrix 15 by 15, which represent origin to destination. And then we calculated speed, delay, travel time, reliability, buffer index, a lot of wonky, jargony type metrics, just to see which of these 225 commuter routes is the most miserable. Next slide, please. We thought that miserable commutes would be kind of like a fun take on the Vision Zero top 20 corridors. So we wanted to see which are the top 20 most miserable commutes. You know, this was just like a fun study that we did in-house, so I'm not sharing the results, but this is the kind of analysis that ClearGuide allows us to produce. And in the future, if we're to work on and refine this methodology, it could be something that appears in a regional LRTP, for example, because cross-county commutes typically, you know, they rely on the interstate system and then move on to arterials to arrive at the final destination. This could be the kind of analysis we do in a future plan. Next slide, please. We're also able to use this tool as a supplement to traditional corridor level of service analysis. We're working with the county right now, as a matter of fact. The county is working to update its comprehensive plan. The mobility element contains level of service analysis, but what we know about our network in the county is that LOS doesn't tell us a whole lot because most of our roads are performing poorly. So we're looking at things like reliability or travel time index as alternatives to LOS so that we can target improvements to the roads that'll be most affected by new development. Next slide, please. ClearGuide is also a really helpful public engagement tool because it provides an engagement opportunity. Just bringing this up on a screen in a crowded room gives people something to talk about. And it also provides some transparency. Most of the time when I've gone to public meetings, I bring documents that I've produced in-house and then present them to the community. But if the community has a question and I'm not able to answer it on the spot, I have to go back to the office, do the analysis, come back to the meeting and present it again. If I were to bring this tool to a public meeting and I got a question, I could produce the analysis in real time in front of everyone. And that makes it a lot more engaging for people to, you know, for one, participate in a conversation. Next slide, please. Our partners are getting a lot of use out of it. The city of Tampa recently used it to evaluate some signal retiming projects that it did in downtown. Next slide. I wasn't involved in this project, so I'm just going to have to quickly summarize. And if you have any questions, maybe Stephen or someone who's here can answer. But our partners in Tampa Traffic Management Center used the tool to help retime signals all throughout the downtown district. And the metrics that are built into ClearGuide allowed them to evaluate the success. And you can see that the way that this methodology was defined is by defining the area, that's clearly downtown. They drew lines along all of the north, south, east, west routes, and they used a function called multi-route reporting to obtain before values for congestion, speed, delay. And then once they retimed the signals, they looked at what was happening after. And the results are shown on the next slide, please. You can see from this bar graph or this chart that travel time decreased on every single route that was retimed, and delay decreased. So, you know, based on what they're seeing in ClearGuide, those retiming efforts were very successful. Next slide, please. And everything that I presented you with just now is what's possible today. This is a project that's going to be long-term, and we're developing a roadmap for how to build this out in the future now. Every day we get approached by a new vendor that has a new data set that could allow us to produce better insights. The next steps for us are to incorporate transit data. We want to add in demographic data so that we can see what's going on in different communities and how some of our disadvantaged communities compare to others across the county. We would like to get origin destination data. An asterisk alongside OD data would be bike ped data. We're also investigating adding micromobility, so e-scooter and bike share. We'd like to add dashboards on our website to make this interactive for members of the public so that they can have access to some of these insights as well if they're curious about how a road near them is performing. And then finally, like the ultimate build out for this tool would be predictive analytics. We would like to be able to see what the impact, what the safety impacts would be on a specific corridor if we were to build a bike lane, or if we were to install a crosswalk or a rapid flashing beacon. Once we get to that stage, those kind of insights will be possible with this tool, but it's going to take us some time and resources to get to that point. Next slide, please. I think that's it. And so once again, this is just an overview and an introduction to one of the tools that we've invested in. And I was really happy to share what my vision is for building this out. We provided training to most of our agency partners already. They're getting more acquainted and accustomed with the software, and they're finding new use cases for it. And I guess that's all my time. I'll be happy to answer any questions and receive any comments that you have. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Dr. Wong. Are there any questions by the group? All righty. I think that's it. Again, thank you very much for your time and the tool.
Thanks for having me.
Right.
And Mr. Chair, I can just mention, having seen and used the tool, particularly looking at how traffic has gone down compared to the historic average this last year, and then how it has creeped back up over the last few months. It's been really fascinating, and I think it's really powerful tool. So thank you, Johnny.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, moving on here with Ken Spitz, this Fowler Avenue multimodal study here. So welcome.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
Excellent. It's a new headset, so I'm just testing out the mic. So actually, you're getting a two for tonight. It's myself and someone I know you're very acquainted with. Alex Henry is also on the line with me, so we're gonna tag team this. What I'm here tonight to talk to you about is the University Area Multimodal Feasibility Study. Although it's called University Area, we did look at other side streets. Our primary focus is Fowler Avenue for this project. It's a year and a half to 2 year planning study effort that we did with Kimley Horn, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. It goes from the study area is Fowler Avenue from I-275 on the west to I-75 on the east. Next, please. Okay, so I'm going to give introduction and overview. Alex is going to talk about some of the short-term safety improvements that we've already got planned, and then I'm going to go into the conceptual or more long-term designs that we've got for Fowler Avenue. Next, please. So we had to identify our key corridor needs as a result of this study, and as you can see, we have 3 of them. It's safety, transit flexibility, and intersection efficiency. Safety, I don't have to explain to you. It's a wide road, it's a busy road, it's a fast road. We know that we have vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian safety issues throughout that corridor. What we want to be able to do here is put into place some improvements, especially pedestrian and bicycle facilities. We want to upgrade the lighting because many areas of this corridor are quite dark, especially at night. It's very difficult to see. We also want to reduce cyclist exposure to the higher speed vehicles. And we want to lower the vehicle travel speeds on Fowler Avenue itself. The transit flexibility part is because, as you'll see in some of the graphics, a portion of this is planned to be a BRT, bus rapid transit segment in HART's long-term plans, and we'll talk about that. And then also intersection efficiency. While we're improving for pedestrians and bicycle and for transit, we also have to make sure that we account for some of the folks that are using it who are in vehicles, because we know in the coming years what's already been approved and what's planned There could be over 3 million square feet of mixed use. This is new usage. 3,000 new residences have already been approved for this area. So we know that's going to increase travel demand in this area. So one of the things that we touched on a little bit in this study, but we'll go more into the PD&E phase, which I'll talk about, is innovative intersection designs and where those might be useful. Next, please. So the time frame for action. So what kind of time frame are we talking about? Everybody wants to see improvements right away. We know this has been an issue. Being a government agency, we have to put together a work program. Money doesn't grow on trees, as you know. And so we put things into 5-year buckets. And so we've divided the actions up for this into short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And what I want to show with this slide is that we're going to be doing things simultaneously. So it isn't necessarily just a linear process. So while you're doing some things short-term, we're also preparing for the medium-term. So that can include doing the design work. It can include purchasing right-of-way if we need to. And then similarly for the medium term, while the minor construction is being done, we can then move forward from the medium term into whatever planning, design work we need there and purchasing right-of-way for the longer term needs. Next, please. Thank you. So short-term actions. And this, I think, has a little bit of animation, so you need to go ahead and click a couple times there for me. There we go. So we've got 5 different intersections, primarily in 4 of them in the western segment of the corridor that are going to be full-on intersection improvements, and Alex is going to talk a little bit about that. We have another 5 where we're talking about implementing leading pedestrian intervals, signal timing scheme which helps pedestrian safety, and then there's one more. And then we've got more towards the eastern end, we've a lot of incomplete crosswalks. So we're going to improve those and also do some things with the signals. And again, that's primarily at the eastern edge of the corridor. So I think now the next one is for Alex. So Alex, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Ken, and thank you everybody for having us tonight. Yeah, so as Ken mentioned, in addition to the bigger picture corridor study that we've been looking on along the corridor, trying to kind of identify what that future vision and typical section for the corridor is, we also wanted to look for opportunities throughout Fowler Avenue to identify some kind of quick hit safety items that we can move forward in advance of the larger project that will make an immediate safety impact along the corridor while also being consistent with some of the longer term concepts that we're going to present in a couple of slides. So we did a deep dive of all the crash data along the corridor. We did bicycle pedestrian counts all along the corridor to see where folks are crossing. And one of the things that really kind of jumped out to us is that we saw our largest concentrations of crossings and also our largest concentrations of crashes at a lot of our signalized intersections along the corridor. So we really saw making some geometric improvements to several of the signalized intersections along Fowler Avenue as being something that we could do relatively quickly. It didn't require a lot of additional traffic analysis, so it's something that we could pretty easily get internal buy-off on and program a project to go out there and make some quick improvements. So I'm going to quickly kind of just walk through some of the concepts of the intersection improvements that we're making. All of these are set to be bundled up into a low bid design build project. So we'll bring on one contractor that'll manage both the design and the construction of the improvements, which allows us to advance them sooner. And that is funded for this fiscal year and should hopefully be starting work spring of 2021. So we're moving pretty quickly on this. But the first intersection that I'll just briefly talk about is Fowler, Nebraska, which has traditionally been one of our higher crash signalized intersections in the district for bicycle and pedestrian crashes. As you can see, you know, if you look at the corners of the intersection, there's kind of large sweeping type curb radii that were kind of designed to you know, incorporate large trucks being able to make the turns. So if you go to the next slide, you can see that some of the types of the improvements that we're looking at making. So basically, taking another look at our truck templates that we use to design the intersection, picking a design that's a little more applicable for an urban, high pedestrian, high bicycle traffic area, and really tightening up those angles. And that does a few things. First of all, it shortens the distance that pedestrians have to cross. which is always a good thing, limiting the amount of time and exposure they have crossing the intersection. And it also increases their visibility for drivers turning and encourages lower turning speeds. So kind of a triple hitter of safety benefits at the intersection that we're going to be able to move ahead in the near term. Next slide. Fowler at 16th, which is the next signalized intersection to the east. Next slide. You can kind of see we're making some similar type improvements. Currently, there are kind of gored out striped areas on the curves on the northwest and southeast sides, which we are just kind of formalizing a little bit by pulling in the curb to, again, increase those lower turning speeds and reduce those crossing distances as well. Next slide. Fowler 22nd, which is further to the east, looking at similar types of improvements, which if you go to the next slide, we'll see. So again, looking for opportunities to kind of bulb out those curbs where we have the room to do it, and also extending the median noses into the intersection to provide some pedestrian refuge for folks that are crossing Fowler, help break that crossing up a little bit and give folks a place to stay to wait it out if they get caught crossing towards the end of the pedestrian cycle. So in a lot of intersections, we're not able to kind of apply this treatment because of turning templates. It's too tight to accommodate people turning left. But in this situation, we did. So we took advantage of that little space to carve out some room for pedestrians to wait. Next slide, please. The next couple of intersections we're going to talk about are Bruceby Downs and Fowler at 56, which are locations where we are going to be implementing what we call an urban smart channel concept. So on the left, you can kind of see our traditional design of how we've designed channelized right turn refuges for pedestrian. Sometimes we call it a pork chop island. And this design is good because it helps break up the crossing for the pedestrian, do it into different stages and separates the turning conflicts of the right turns. However, national best practice has shown that the design can be a little problematic sometimes, and that it encourages some higher speeds for folks coming around the right turn lanes, kind of limits the visibility the drivers have of pedestrians, and also serves as a bit of a challenge for vehicular safety, as the approach angle really requires drivers that are trying to merge into traffic to turn their head all the way around to oncoming traffic, which I think we've all had the displeasure of doing. So kind of the new national best practice, and something that we're starting to encourage in our projects, is what's called an urban smart channel, which, as you can see on the right in the graphic there, takes the driver in at a tighter angle, a more perpendicular angle, that not only encourages a lower speed when going into the turn, but improves the visibility of the pedestrian who is now crossing directly at the sight lines of the driver, and makes it safer and easier for the driver to navigate that right turn onto the main line as well. Next slide, please. So the first intersection we're implementing this at is Fowler Bruceby Downs, which is a major intersection just there on the western boundary of USF. As you can see, it already was it already has some of those older style pork chop turning right turn channelized islands in the existing condition. But if you go to the next slide, you can see that we are going to be implementing that new design, which will help to further break up those pedestrian crossings, relocate some of the crosswalks and places where the pedestrians are more visible, and again, trying to reduce those turning speeds, and as a result, some of the turning conflicts that we've seen being issued at some of these busy intersections. Next slide, please. And then the last intersection I'll show is probably where we're making the most significant changes. This is Fowler at 56th Street, a little bit further east, more towards the Temple Terrace type intersection. And as you can see, this is a pretty large intersection. There are multiple turn lanes on several of the approaches, which really makes it kind of a wide and large intersection, and can be difficult to cross. So if you go to the next slide, as you can see, kind of installing these islands has really given us the opportunity to kind of shrink the intersection down quite a bit. As you can kind of see on the north side, we were able to extend that median nose a couple car lengths forward, bring up the stop line, and really kind of shrink the footprint of the intersection, reduce pretty significantly the amount of distance that pedestrians need to cross, while also implementing those urban smart channel type designs that are going to help it make it safer for pedestrians, crossing those right turn lanes, and encouraging slower speeds and safer operations for vehicles as well. Next slide. So before I hand it back off to Ken, I just wanted to highlight a few other shorter term type improvements that we have in the pipeline. As Ken mentioned, we are analyzing leading pedestrian intervals at all of the signalized intersections along the corridor. In fact, our traffic operations office is doing kind of a district-wide screening of all of our high crash bicycle and pedestrian corridors right now. Our leadership is really encouraging us to be proactive and implement these in as many locations as we can, as they've been proven to be a pretty effective safety countermeasure. Lighting is another thing that Ken mentioned that we've been able to get programmed or moving ahead with. In partnership with TICO in the city, we will be retrofitting all of the lighting at the existing traffic signals with LED lighting as part of our district-wide lighting retrofit initiative, and that work is anticipated to be completed this fall. And then we've also included a retrofit of all of the corridor lighting, so all the lighting in between the signalized intersections along the corridor, and that is programmed for construction in our fiscal year 24. So if you have any questions about any of the concepts we've shown, we can kind of answer those at the end of the presentation. But for now, I'll hand it back over to Ken. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Alex. So let's talk a little bit about the proposed implementation schedule, because as I mentioned, in those 5-year chunks, what we're looking at was specifically what Alex mentioned is happening in the first 5 years. So if you go ahead and hit a click there, I think we have an arrow that comes out of the side there. There we go. So that points to some of the different projects that Alex just described. We do have estimated budgets for those also. And what you can see in this slide is that most of this is going to take place in FY21 and FY22. And just so in case you didn't know, July 1 to June 30th is our fiscal year. So we actually are currently in fiscal year 21. So we're soon to be getting started with these, as Alex mentioned. So design would begin very soon, and then construction would happen after that. Then what happens is we go into the part that I will talk more about, which is a PD&E stage. That stands for Project Development and Environment. And what that does is that's where we do a deeper dive into design. We look at more of the engineering and the environmental issues. We also have very robust public input during that phase. During the planning study, we had a little bit of outreach primarily to stakeholders. In the PD&E, we get much more of the public involvement. So the PD&E will start again this fiscal year and then into the next fiscal year, and then design would follow in FY23 with some of the construction currently scheduled to be in FY24. Next, please. So let's talk a little bit about what the different concepts are. So what we identified in the planning study were 3 different conceptual designs. Now I will also, as you'll see there in the blue letters down below, these are 3 that will definitely be analyzed in the PD&E study, which I mentioned will be starting this fiscal year. This is not to say they will be the only 3. Others will possibly be developed. I would assume there would be other alternatives. We always also look at a no build. What happens if you don't do anything and then still have the kind of growth and increased use of pedestrians, bicycles, etc. The 3 different concepts are a BAT lane, business access and transit lane, which we'll see a picture of, and that basically allows non-transit vehicles to use the right lane. So it's not exactly an exclusive bus lane, it's a shared bus lane. That's usually considered minor to major construction. That's a medium-term action. A frontage lane design, which would be an access lane along the side of the main roadway, and they're separated. That would allow a curbside bus-only lane. And then that's also minor to major construction, and that's considered a medium-term action. And then the longer-term action is a median transit way. So that would be bus rapid transit lanes, possibly transitioning to light rail transit guideway area with stations in the center separated from the roadway. And that's a major construction, as I mentioned, and that's more of a long-term action. So let's take a look at those pictures. So the first is the business access and transit lane, and we have a couple of pictures here that give you some examples from San Francisco and also from Minneapolis on what these look like. What I want to show in this is, and I want you to notice, the speed limit that we're assuming for this is 35 miles an hour in the main line. That's a reduction from 45. We're also, the different icons there show the different modes that we're trying to accommodate. So we have the pedestrian, bike, bus. We also have vehicles. And one of the things I'll point out with this is, and we'll mention here, although they're not shown at the intersections, the transit stations would be located near the intersections. One of the differences in this concept is you'll notice the green lanes for the bike are integrated with the bus stops. And so that's interesting because it doesn't always follow with some of these designs. But what we really tried to shoot here for is that you have that access, that direct tie-in. So you know, HART might be able to provide bike racks and other types of things that it would help with interaction between bus riders, cyclists transferring over to the transit service. So that's our first concept. We'll go to the second one now. This is the frontage lane concept. And again, we have some examples: Montgomery County, suburban Washington, D.C. and Maryland, and then also Queens, New York. They do have quite a bit of these. They call them parkways there. But Queens and Brooklyn, if you know the boroughs of New York City, these are quite common. What we've got here again is we've got a main line of 35 miles an hour, and then the frontage roads would be 25 miles an hour. Now, we don't show buildings alongside of this, but that's the access that it would have to driveways or to businesses along that area. That's going to obviously be a key component of this, and I would say probably controversial because you have a lot of businesses in there that have a lot of separate driveways. They're going to be very interested in how they continue to get access to the road. You have them between the frontage and the mainline roads, you have these kind of slip roads in between. Now, these are not like ramps off the interstate. This is at grade. And they would not necessarily have to be high speed. You're only going from 25 to 35 when you shift between the frontage and the main line. Again, you can see the bus only lanes where they're at. In this case, you would not have right turns from the bus lane because local traffic would use the frontage road along the side. But one difference you'll notice is that here, the bicycle lane is along the frontage road rather than integrated with the transit. And that's because of the frontage road design. But again, we have all the different modes here. You know, we're trying to make that area look a little better, obviously. So we'll go next to the third concept, which is a median transit way. So again, part of the flexibility that we're looking for here is we're showing it as a bus only. That's what HART is proposing. But we're also trying to be flexible with the envelope that we have in the middle of the road there. The size of a LRT, a light rail train or light rail transit vehicle, is very similar to that of a bus. So you could easily have two lines here, one in each direction for light rail transit. You'll notice then that now the stations are in the center of the roadway rather than along the outside. This does present a bit more interaction at the intersections, as you'll see in the example with Quito, Ecuador there. That brings the stations right up to the intersections. Then those intersections become the area where the pedestrians and the bicyclists would access transit. With this, we obviously do not have a side road. It's just the main line. You do have the bicycle lane alongside. There could be more of a gap there. We're saying buffered, but as you can see there, we do have some green space. Those could be a little further separated. That'll get worked out in PD&E. I know I went through that really fast, but let's go to the next slide. Let's talk a moment, unless there's someone here from HART. I don't know if there is anybody from HART on here, but yeah, you need to click one more time. Their planning process was going on at the same time ours was. So neither one of us wanted to hold up the other. So they were first, they got a head start on us. This is what their initial plan is for what I guess I would call the short term. So this would be the BRT concept, although they do show a median guideway. So again, this shows the roadway with 35 miles an hour, 4 lanes in each direction. The stations and the bus lanes would be very similar to one of the earlier, the median transit way I showed, but they're showing the stations in the center, dead center, instead of along the sides of that guideway. But also we're showing then instead of separated sidewalks and bike lanes, they're showing a shared use path. Again, this will get looked at during the PD&E phase. And you can see where on the map below, where they're proposing this is between Nebraska and Bruce B. Downs. It doesn't really affect the rest of the area that we looked at all the way east to I-75. So I believe that's the last slide.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to get out of that. There we go.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. So again, if you have any questions for myself or Alex, we'll be happy to take them if there's time right now.
Mr. Chair, I did just want to point out that Linda Crescentini from HART did type into the chat. I'm sorry you're not a panelist, Linda, but I can fix that pretty quick. But she said to please coordinate with HART on the Nebraska short-term project that you are that there may be some bus bay issues. So I'm sure Alex and Ken will follow up with that.
Absolutely.
All righty. Any other questions or comments here for Ken or Alex here?
Everybody's sold. This is great.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. All three of them look pretty cool. I'm sure going to be a welcome change.
Yes. Well, thank you all for the opportunity to present to you tonight.
All righty. So next here we have, let's see, we're getting in the old business, new business, but also did we want to finish up? I noted, I'm sorry, Stephen, we just skipped right ahead. Anything with the build out on the West River side? Did we want to revisit that at this time?
And Stephen, I can make you the presenter.
It's up to you guys. Yeah, we've been getting just a boatload of media requests and people emailing us asking. So we're happy to share what we know at this point if there's interest among the members.
We
can go through it quickly and then do a more in-depth presentation in the future. That would be an option.
Let's go ahead and do that.
Stephen, I'm making you the presenter.
Okay. Can y'all sort of see this?
Yes.
Yep, looks good. So we received a $24 million grant. It's called a build grant, similar to the Tiger grant. That's what it used to be called. The city's matching it with $6 million. So we're looking at $30 million worth of work that's really going to be focusing on building new and improving the existing bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, mostly in the area on the west side of the river, but also looking at some connections into the Riverwalk on the east side as well. These are the different criteria that are part of the grant, looking at sustainability, resiliency, and this area is actually the south end of the project area, which starts at Platt Street and goes all the way up to Columbus and then across. So this is Tony Janis Park on the south. You can see the orange line there at Platt Street. So we're proposing a underpass over water connection from Tony Janis Park to Bayshore, continuing with improvements to the existing sidewalks in Tony Janis Park and connecting under Broreen Street. And the red line there is an existing Riverwalk connection that was built with the Manor Street apartment complex. So we would connect into that existing facility. Picking up north of the Manor Street project is the WFLA project and property. They have within their development agreement a requirement to build that section of Greenway on their property, as does the property to the north, which is known as Lafayette Place. Lafayette Place will make a connection under Kennedy Boulevard over water, and then tie in with the University of Tampa and Plants Park, which you see the orange or peach color line again. The red line along the river at the University of Tampa is a trail connection that was completed in 2016 by the city of Tampa. It ends up at the north end or north entrance to the University of Tampa at Cass Street. One of the things we're looking at is how to make a better connection as you leave the University of Tampa and cross the railroad track there. Right now, we didn't really address that crossing because working with CSX is a long process, but that's something we want to address in this project. There's an existing crossing with rapid flashing beacons there, and that will connect us over to Tampa Preparatory School. We have an easement behind the school, and we actually have construction drawings for that segment, so it may be one of the first ones that we build. So the trail behind Tampa Prep would connect in with the existing Julian B. Lane Riverfront Park and the sidewalk there. One of the things that this grant is also going to pay for is the living shoreline improvements. So we're also looking at the health of the river, which was, I think, part of our resiliency requirements within this grant. So those living shorelines would be incorporated into Tony Janis at Tampa Prep, and then behind Blake High School, which is where the trail connects from Riverfront Park. There's an existing trail behind Blake High School, but it's in poor condition. It's been driven on and used for deliveries by the school. It also has some cross slope issues that aren't really compatible with ADA requirements, and we have some stormwater and some seawall issues that would also be addressed with the improvements behind Blake. There's an existing trail connection underneath North Boulevard behind Stewart Middle School, which is in good shape. So we would pick up behind Stewart Middle School. Here's a picture of that existing trail. The shoreline was also a swift mud improvement project, so the shoreline has a conservation easement over it, which we would respect with our improvements. But then we would continue behind Stewart Middle School and turn the project and tie into our Martin Luther King Recreation Complex. Again, this is all off-road trail, and as we cut through Martin Luther King Center, we would tie in with Rome Avenue. So part of the project is also looking at complete streets on Platt Street and on Rome Avenue. That would help again with our overall multimodal goal of this area. As our trail continues along Rome Avenue up to Columbus, Stephen showed you previously what the plans are for Columbus to include a wide sidewalk on each side as well as bicycle facilities. So that'll get us across Columbus into the Ridgewood Park neighborhood and Glenwood Avenue, which runs through the middle of that neighborhood. They have a wide median that the trail would continue through down to Ross Avenue, across Ross, down on the west side of North Boulevard, and tie into the Riverwalk at Armature Works. So that's the project in a very quick nutshell. So it includes multimodal paths, complete streets on Rome and Platt, our overwater underpasses at Platt Street and Berlin, enhanced crossings at Stewart Middle School, Martin Luther King Center, the CSX crossing at University of Tampa, and our Riverwalk connection, as well as our living shoreline projects. All of this has to be completed in 7 years. So we have a pretty tight time frame to get all of this done. So I'm sure that we'll be coming back to you guys with more details on each of these sections as we really get into the nitty-gritty of design. Any questions? I know that was very quick. And sorry, Stephen, if I was talking faster than you were scrolling. But it's going to be a great project, and we're really excited about it.
Right. Are there any questions on this project here, guys?
This is Wanda. I kind of have a question for Stephen because I had initially asked him about it through Wade. Traffic right now in the Armature Works area is insane, and if we're going to be now bringing more pedestrians and bicycles and people down there, what are the plans around some sort of control of that area?
Yeah, I did. I think we talked earlier about about some of the cut through traffic on Ross, right?
Yes, we did. Yes.
Yeah. So we have added that to the queue for locations to put into always stop controls, kind of
Okay.
like how I mentioned earlier. We're going to be looking at doing more of those.
Great.
Our list, I think I mentioned briefly, is about 6 months long. I was told it's not going to take 6 months to get yours in.
Okay.
But I'll follow up with you separately once we get a better idea of timing. But that's
Okay.
but that is in the works, and it is moving. We're just chipping away at it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All righty. Any other questions or thoughts here? All right. Hearing none. Moving on to old business, new business here. Wade, we have some calendar adjustments for 2021.
Yes, sir. So the main adjustments would be in May or June. You may not be able to see my mouse here, but BPAC is right under 2020. And May would be about a week later, and June would be about a week later than normal. Those would allow a little more time to get the tip a little more finalized before it came to you, before it goes to the board. And I think it'll be a good thing. I can pull up last year's calendar here for you, which in May, it was May 19th and June 9th before. It is May 13th and June 17th before. So it's sort of swapping. One is a week earlier, one's a week later.
Right.
But we will be bringing this back to you for approval. I just wanted to make sure that that didn't set off any red flags with anyone. And I hope it doesn't.
All righty. Thank you, Wade. All right. Next item on the maintenance issues discussion.
Yes, sir. I was hoping Mr. Davitt might be here for an issue we had been discussing on Harney Road. I know there had been some response. I don't know if Mr. Chair, if you had any news on that or update.
Not on Harney.
Okay.
And I think Peter's on vacation right now. So.
Just in the broader context, I want to let you know that we're putting together something to bring back to you. I have some great info from the city of Tampa and working to get the same from FDOT and Hillsborough County so we can compare, and then looking at some other cities and what they're doing to address some of these issues proactively. And I was pleased to see in Stephen's presentation some of those, the small street sweeper and the other items y'all are looking at.
Yes, and I think I'd like to emphasize that we would like that invitation for that christening ceremony of the mini street sweeper. I definitely think so. Very excited about that. And then lastly, the virtual and hybrid meeting discussion.
Yes, sir. So at the end of this month, the emergency order does run out. And at that time, several committees and the board and our elected bodies will have to go back to having an in-person quorum. The BPAC is not one of the committees that is required by state or federal law, so we could have the option to continue meeting virtually, or have an in-person option and do a hybrid meeting. I'm happy to go to the room and run the meeting from there if we want to have an in-person option. And we could continue, even if we did it virtually, to note objections and any comments we had on action items, but there would still be the formal action issue, although action is not required under state or federal law, so it's a gray area.
Okay. All right. What are your folks' thoughts here so far? So the emergency order runs out. This is the last month.
Yes, sir.
So conceivably, although we're not mandated by law, we would be meeting in person for November's BPAC meeting.
Yes, sir.
okay, or we have the option of continue in this realm, or some sort of hybrid that we have the room reserved and you're there along with anyone else who's comfortable there, as well as doing this virtually.
Yes, sir.
All right. Are we looking for a decision tonight then?
You know, really just wanted to find out if there are strong opinions either way. I know that it's a difficult issue, and I think we've had really good turnout with the virtual meetings, frankly. But as we get towards major action items like the tip, it will of course be potentially there may be a greater need or a greater desire to have people in person.
All right. Would there be any other accommodations made from room size then, or would it be still in the same room?
For the time being, I believe we are looking at the usual Plan Hillsborough committee room. Under the occupancy guidelines, I think the maximum occupancy would be 12 people. So that wouldn't give us an in-person quorum.
Right.
So that's something you have to also think about.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna again ask if there are any discussion items on this, or thoughts or concerns by the group.
I do want to acknowledge that that Ali, when proposed maintaining virtual meetings, and Wanda Vinson said hybrid would suit me. I enjoy being there in person. So I miss seeing you all too.
Okay. Alrighty, I think personally, if you're looking for an opinion from, I would be comfortable with the hybrid, but probably as chair will plan on attending virtually.
Understood.
Right.
All right.
Jim,
Well,
did you have something to add? I think Jim has something to add.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want to attend virtually, I'll attend physically, so we'll cover it. Give me an excuse to go downtown.
Alrighty. Is there any other old business or new business to consider? All right, hearing none, I think we can move for adjournment.
I so move.
All righty, then we have a motion, an adjournment motion. I guess we'll just go ahead and approve and adjourn this month's meeting here. Thank you very much once again, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you in November.
Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.